Welcome to Cheeseburger Thunder. This is the F6F5N, the Radar Hellcat, the 4.3 plane that exists. One of my favorite planes of all time because in the game, it's very thoroughly mediocre. It's one of those planes, it's American. It's not particularly fast for its BR. It turns pretty well for 1 to 2 turns. And even in sim, its rearward visibility is really mediocre. But we're just going to do some boom and zooming demonstration, and then we're going to talk about how to boom and zoom and kind of how to play American planes in sim, so that we can add even more context and more learning to the video that I did on Japanese planes, like earlier this week or last week or whenever it was. Now, the thing that people get wrong with American planes is everyone kind of has this habit of thinking of things in kind of like a stasis of like, it's a boom and zoom plane, it's a turn fighter, it's an energy fighter, and kind of lumping things into categories when, in reality, depending on the situation you're in, everything can be a turn fighter, everything can be an energy fighter, everything can be a boom and zoomer. And depending on where you're at, what you need to do, how you're going to do it, the tactics, the strategies that you employ, the decisions you make are varied. That's kind of what the fun part of like prop sim is the fact that you don't have to play exactly the same way all of the time. Like right now, I came in, I got the key 43, I missed the first boom pass, which meant that, yeah, I went back up, but I had a lot of speed to go back up. A lot of people are hurt by their aim. Having to shoot targets when you're fast is harder than having to shoot targets when you're slow. That's just a fundamental, like, truth. That's just a basic thing. Right now, I'm being trailed by what I think is an A7M, and as we can see, I carried enough speed. I'm going away at a shallow angle. I'm practicing the subtle art of flying the fuck away, because that's what American planes can do. They have the subtle art of being able to fly the fuck away, but you don't always have to fly the fuck away. I've got the space. I've got an A7 behind me. I've got a BF-109 behind me. I didn't realize at the time it was Idaho, but the game's nearly over. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to chance it. I'm going to force the equal merge and see what he does, because as long as I have some altitude below me and I don't blow away all of my position right away, I can probably extend away and get away if this guy knows exactly what he's doing. And he does a thing where he's trying to conserve energy here. Now I have guns on and I get to sit behind him, but with American planes, when you get near stall speeds, when you're like in this position, this is the primary third-party position. This is when everyone's going to come up and go, yeah, I'm shooting that target. That's a free target right there. And that's one of the things. That is something that's universal for all planes across the board. When you see a plane in sim that is stalling itself out, you go, yeah, that's a free kill. Anyways, I'm going to put some charts up here and talk a little bit through them, because in the last video I presented a lot of information, but I didn't go through every single piece of information available, because then it turns into like an hour and a half long video, and it's a prop video. I'm already nuking my YouTube algorithm by showcasing this kind of thing. And I want to show these charts because people in WarThunder fundamentally misunderstand how speed and acceleration works within the game. For instance, my last video got more than a few comments talking about how Japanese planes accelerate and how they retain energy, and because they accelerate well and retain energy well, they're actually able to catch up to American planes. And American planes don't feel as fast as people make them out to be. So the first thing that I do want to start with is what I'm calling sea level acceleration. This is just an acceleration test. I started at 300 kph, which is kind of more or less like a corner speed of, like, if you're in a sustained turn and you're flat, you're going to come out of that turn, you're going to be around like 300 kph or so. It's just like a good benchmark for me to start at. And just because it's at sea level, it's not really about sea level. It's just about showcasing acceleration, how kind of a variety of different planes accelerate and where their strengths lie and where their strengths maybe don't lie. And we've got kind of a range here. I've got like the A6M5, the K84, the P51D30, the F4U-4, that's the F4U-4 regular, and the LF Mark 9. I can add more to it, but at that point we'd end up with a bunch of overlapping lines. The big thing to notice is that your planes that climb well, so your LF Mark 9, its low-end acceleration is very, very good, which should make sense because the power-to-weight ratio is there. But once it gains speed, once it gets to higher speeds, its acceleration begins to taper off because the drag of the airframe does come back to bite it. Same thing goes with the A6M5 to a lower extent. At the low end, it doesn't look exceptional, But if you're already at that 300 kph line and the guy's already behind you and you're going to try to accelerate away from him, if he's already within gun range, you're probably not going to open up the distance quick enough. The same thing goes for things like the Key 84. The Key 84, F4U-4, and the P51D30 have very similar acceleration curves up until about 50 to 60 seconds in. So once you get to that like 550, 560 kph mark, the Key 84 is actually out accelerating these things, and then the drag of the airframe takes over, and then it can't catch up. So the big takeaway is that in American planes, the faster you're going, the better your relative acceleration is going to be. That is kind of just universally true for planes with high top speeds, but maybe not necessarily the greatest power to weight ratio. Same thing with the Key 84. What makes the Key 84 so strong is that it's not easy to leave in the dust. It's not easy to just blindly outrun it. So what about diving away? Because in theory, if you have a higher dive speed and you have better high-end acceleration, you should be able to dive away, get into those speed ranges where you accelerate better, and leave the enemy plane in the dust. Well, unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And the reason I say it's a little bit more complicated than that is because, number one, if the guy's already within like 200-300 meters of you, the chances of you opening up space quickly enough to be outside of gun range is very dependent upon the other player's aim. Extending away when a guy's already like right there, a lot of times is just not feasible. The other thing is that dive speeds don't necessarily correspond to high-end acceleration. So for instance, I did a test and I was testing dive deceleration, but I just did this from 2,500 meters, dove down to like the deck and then leveled off and just kind of like did a rough estimate of like where the dive speed was. And something like the Key 84, if you dive steeply away from it in the F4U-4, the regular one, it's very likely going to keep up with you. Basically, if you're in a Spitfire, it's definitely going to keep up with you. And it means that you can't just blindly point the nose down and just expect to be in the clear. The big thing that makes the difference isn't really the dive acceleration or the dive speeds. It's the deceleration once you come out of a dive. So something like the Key 84, you can see that it does get to a higher dive speed than the F4U-4, but it also decelerates much quicker. So once you level off, that's when you really start to open up the distance, or at least that's when you have the greatest rate of like flying away. And the very last part about mastering the subtle art of flying the other direction is just understanding a little bit about how dive geometry works, because oftentimes what I see happen is that guys will dive straight down and they hit the deck, they level off, they lose a bunch of their speed, and the guy that's behind them is in a slightly shallower dive. He keeps his speed for longer, and he's actually able to close the distance. And this little triangle diagram thing here is kind of just illustrating that point. And really kind of the big takeaway is that when you're trying to open up your distance, especially in American planes, is you got to be really cognizant that you don't dive straight down and then do like a 90-degree turn and then just allow the guy to cut off your flight path. Because when he does that, it means that he can be in a slower plane, but because he's that red line that's doing like a nice like 45-degree dive and you've already leveled off and lost a bunch of your speed, he's going to catch up to you, and then you are not actually utilizing kind of like the advantages of your plane correctly. So all this is really just to say in kind of like not super complicated terms, because I don't think they're that hard to understand, is that it's pretty simple, but it's more complicated than people make it out to be sometimes. Anyways, let's hop into a little bit of gameplay here and talk about the F4U Corsair. This is the F4U-4. This is a late war Corsair. This is the normal -4. This is not the 4B, so it's not the 5.7 one. It is 5.3 in sim. It used to be 5.0, but it did get moved up about a year ago. And at 5.3, it's a pretty, I think it's a well-balanced plane. I do think it's kind of a typical American plane where you are kind of one of the fastest things at the BR while being still pretty respectable in maneuverability-wise. Like the F4U-4s, the Corsairs have a really, really good compromise between kind of all of the performance metrics, climb, acceleration, speed, turn rate, turn radius, all that good stuff. The flaps on this are incredibly good. The combats, all the way down to landings, are basically automatic at this point. It's impossible to rip them now, so they will automatically retract. Once you get those landing flaps out, it will kill your speed, but because it's a naval plane, because the low stall speed, you do hang around for a very long time, especially with the paddle props on these. Like this plane, if you are good in it and you're willing to kind of mix things up, you can get a lot of work out of this. Now, if you play it very strictly, which Usually when people talk about boom and zooming, they want to be really strict about it. They really think that they need to spend a lot of time extending, a lot of time gaining energy, a lot of time just doing like this really passive thing. In reality, you don't. Because speed is not just a defensive asset. Usually people frame it as a defensive asset, but it's also an offensive asset, and it's also something that can be converted into altitude, and it can be converted into turning. Like, you can maneuver with the American planes. Most of them are fairly competitive against kind of like your middle-of-the-road fighters. Like BF-109s against American planes is a, relatively speaking, fair fight, depending on the variant. It's not really until you get down to like 109 F4s that things become a little bit tricky. I really do consider the 109G series up to the K series to be basically on par with the Corsairs, maybe a little bit better, a little bit worse in maneuverability, depending on the altitude, depending on kind of the energy states, which is all to say that these planes, as much as people like to make them out as pure boom and zoomers, are really just another, it's just another form of energy fighting. Like, you are able to maintain more energy once you get it, but you don't generate it as quickly once you lose it. So it's something to be aware of. Something like a 109 with a lot of engine power regain a lot of its energy in the form of a climb, especially if it's left alone, but it also doesn't have the same ability to store as much of its energy in the airframe in the form of airspeed. So there are some circumstances where the 109 is better, and there are some circumstances where the Corsair or any kind of American plane is going to be better. But they're both kind of universal insofar that once you get to the deck, once you get forced to flat turn, if you don't have any altitude below you, the ability to generate space and separation from targets coming in that already have more energy becomes very, very dubious, which means that the maneuverability of these planes, in a lot of cases, it doesn't just come down to winning the dogfight. A lot of time it comes down to trying to drain the other guy of energy, make him make some bad attacks, and gain a little bit of altitude, gain a little bit of angle and position, try to get him like coming in so that he's going one direction, you're going the other, and then you can kind of nose down and get away from them. You have a lot of versatility in any of these planes, though, and these are kind of like a jack-of-all-trades plane. Anyways, we came in, we shot like at a DOE 17, we're going to get this ME-410. He's just like here, he's just wandering around on the deck, but we're sitting at around 580 kph. We're going to zoom up here. We know that we got friendlies around, and that's another big thing. It's like, you got to kind of like be a little bit more cognizant of what's going on around you. You have to be cognizant of the fact that, like, hey, red tracers are something that draws people to you. That's just a reality of the game. You have to be cognizant of the fact that when you go up to the top of your climb and you're going to like turn around, maybe you don't want to go all the way up into a stall. Maybe you don't need to recover all of your altitude, because the faster you're moving, the harder it is for people to catch up to you, but also the harder it is for people to shoot you, and it will give you some flexibility. Like, when I'm playing this, I'm trying to play offensive and defensive at the same time and kind of balance things out. I'm not trying to get committed to a fight, but I'm also not like afraid to. But there's context. Like, there's some fights that are worth committing to, and there's sometimes where like you can't afford it. The big thing that you have going for you in planes like this, planes like the Corsair and kind of American planes in general, is in a lot of cases you can decide whether or not you want to commit, or you can at least look for windows to uncommit. And that is a really, really powerful asset that a lot of people don't really understand, don't take full advantage of. And it's really understandable why people don't, because when you start the game out, you get really target fixated on what's directly ahead of you, and you want to get the kill. And that's why a lot of people in American planes, they turn fight, because it's like, if I just turn like a little bit more, I'll get the guy. And a lot of times the lesson they take from it is, after beating their head against the wall and getting no kills or dying and whatnot, they don't look at it and go, I was really close 2 out of those 3 times. If I just aimed a little bit better, if I was just a little bit better, I would have got those. Usually they take away from it like, these planes can't turn fight, they're bad at turn fighting, therefore we should not do that, we need to adopt a completely different playstyle or switch it up. It's like, you have to think about like what's actually going on. Why didn't you kill the 0? Why didn't you kill the K-84 that you glued yourself to a 6? You glued yourself to a 6, used all your flaps, and when he started to come around the other side, you let him just get behind you. You should have disengaged. And this is like a perfect example where, like, I got this guy energy trapped, and I'm like, this is a good move, this is really good, except there's a guy that I don't see yet. This guy's stalled out, and the second guy, Mr. Wendigo, gets me. And that's just the reality. Like, that's one of the gameplay sense things that you got to develop. It's like, when you are near your stall, you got to be thinking, I'm probably a big juicy target right now. something that you have to be aware of. Now, I go up, I get the guy stalled out. Another friendly picks up the kill. That guy dies right away. He stalled out to basically try to shoot at me. The first guy stalled out. The second guy basically stalled out. And we're going to do the same thing. In the American plains, as long as you have some kind of altitude below you, it doesn't have to be a bunch. You don't have to be up at 8,000 meters, 5,000 meters, or whatever, to have the ability to play the game. Get this guy below us. We're just going to trail in behind him, and this is where speed matters. If I'm in a Japanese plane, if I'm in a 0, and I'm just chasing this guy, I'm literally just sitting behind him going, "Dogfight me, you coward! Dogfight me! Why won't you turn fight me?" But because I'm faster, because I'm able to catch up to him, I'm actually able to force him to fight. And this is a Yak 3. And I'm going to commit to the fight. Why am I going to commit to the fight? Because I'm already directly behind him. I have the speed. I have some altitude below me. Like, I do have the ability that if he somehow played this perfectly correctly from the position he was in, that I could probably get speed and still out-accelerate him and get away. But he starts his turn way too late, lets me close the distance, and basically just ride behind him. And this is where the flaps come in. Drop the flaps out, and gonna cut the throttle. Don't want to overshoot because the Yaks are still pretty good. He could pull out some stuff if I'm just blind. But at this point, though, you got to be thinking. You got to look at your speed and go, 300 kph. If there's no friendlies around, someone else is gonna look at you and go, "I think that might be a free kill." And sure enough, we get a 0 behind us, and we do a brake turn. And the only thing I do that brake turn, as soon as I see that he's overshot, I'm nosing down, getting some distance, letting the Spitfire go for him. The Spitfire is not necessarily going to win, but the Spitfire can keep him entertained for long enough. I go out. I don't go out very far. I just go out just far enough that I can come back, and I'll come back in with 550, 600 kph. And sure enough, the 0 dies to the Spitfire, and we still have the Yak wandering around there. And this is one of the big strengths of like allied teams too, is you have a good mixture of, you have the fastest planes, you have some of the best turning, you don't have all of the best turning. The Japanese planes do turn better, but if you do kind of play into the mix, you can do pretty well with them. But come back, Yak 3, he collapses, he's gone, he's dead a Reno, and we're gonna keep flying around the Corsair. Now this is one of those games that I would consider kind of non-competitive. Because unfortunately a couple of guys on my team are probably in a voice channel all working together, so it means that I have a team with match presence, and there's not really anyone on the enemy team that's like, I'm not fighting Idaho Bookworm, I'm not fighting like the Suck Squad or anything like that, so I can't afford to be a little bit more liberal in the way that I pick my engagements and how I play my planes. I notice that I do get hit. I'm still going to commit to this. Looking behind me here, trying to figure out what's going on. Usually when I get hit, I will hit the J key just to see whether or not like it's a player, or sometimes it'll be like the boats on Port Moresby will shoot you and you'll like freak out. You're like, I heard something hit me, and it's like it was just flak. It was just some random like piece of flak, and you don't need to really react to that. But we're just gonna fly away here. Now the thing with the speeds and the thing with the plane is we're not fast right now. We're still at like 450. That's basically the top speed of a 0, but we can kind of sit at the top speed of a 0 and also climb. And that is one of the most powerful things you can do is you get like something really slow behind you, you get to his top speed, you go beyond his top speed, and then you start climbing, because no matter what, even if he climbs directly behind you, he either has to give you space or he has to give you altitude. I get this guy behind us, 109, and we're going to reverse him here. He goes, basically shoots past us. We roll around his guns. He's going to go up. He's going to go into the stalling position. And this is where you got to be nervous. This is where the Corsair, the landing flaps on the Corsair are really strong. I'm able to cut in, and I'm able to get behind him. And because I'm in this position, because my plane is faster, because I basically, in the long run, accelerate better, he's not in a position where he can disengage anymore. He has to conclude this maneuvering fight. This is something that any plane that's slower than you basically has to do. This is one of the most powerful assets the plane can use, is you are forced to fight it. And if you're forced to fight it on unequal terms, you are likely to lose. Now, forcing everyone into unequal terms all the time is kind of boring, you know? Like, that's why I do kind of try to mix it up. I do like it when people like have a chance of killing me, because I mean, I don't think people want to meet their heroes and realize that I'm just going to fly the fastest plane in the game around and just be untouchable and be like, look at my 10-to-1 KD ratio. And, like, I'm probably, for props, probably the closest guy that plays the game semi, like, competitively, takes it seriously. But, like, I'm not going to go that serious where I need to, like, brag about my kill-to-death ratio. Like, if I want to brag about kill-to-death ratio, I'm just like, look at my ME262 KD on unknown distance. I went 41 and 1, and 1 death was disconnecting. It's like, well, yeah, I just played more strictly to adapt to it just to see that I could, and just to have, like, oh, look, so when someone goes, look at my KD, I'm like, I can be like, yeah, this plane's dog shit. I got good KD, and it has nothing to do with being good. It has a lot to do with being a little bit more selective on the engagements you take. And that's one of the things I think that holds back some players is they get an American plane and they're like, well, it's fast. I know exactly how to do it. I understand the concept. But then they lean way too hard into the speed part of it, and they try to treat the game as if you die in the game, you'll die in real life. And to me, that makes things a little bit less fun. We get a Yak 3 here. We merge equal terms. And because I shoot out in front, I figure I have more energy than he does. I can go up a little bit more, and he shoots way to the outside, and I'm actually, because I think I have more speed, I'm basically going to stall him out. Even if I don't stall him out, I'll probably be able to come around behind him here, using the weight of the plane, using gravity to kind of win the fight for me. We do come in behind him. He does a wing stall here, and we're going to be holding down the trigger again. Like, we just got into a maneuvering fight with the Yak 9. The Yak 9 is very similar into maneuverability as the Yak 3. The Yak 9U is basically on par with, for layman's terms, with the Yak 3. Yak 3 is better at low altitude, a little bit better turning, but it's not a radical difference. It's kind of like comparing a P-51C to a P-51 D-30 with, like, both on equal fuel loads. Like, yeah, the C's better, but it's not an unwinnable fight. Nothing that you're fighting in the Corsair as far as a maneuvering fight goes, as long as it's not a Zero, as long as it's not a Key 43 or like a B-239, like a meme plane that's a kite, you got a good chance. You got a good chance. The big thing is, maneuverability-wise, at higher speeds, you do compress a little bit, so it means your first turn, you'll conserve energy in it, and then you'll start losing your energy in your second turn just because you're not turning as well. Anyways, we get behind the A7M. He's going to go down. He's already damaged. We do kind of just fly in front of him. And that's another problem, is, like, it's really easy to kind of overshoot a guy and then fly in front of him and let him shoot you. And we're alive here because he didn't aim. But we're good to go. And I think this might have been a guy, might have cut it out, where I think we did hit him a couple of times earlier. And it's just kind of like one of those, like, well, he got hit by someone else. He's damaged. Kind of an easy kill. And on Tunisia is a small map, and as the game goes on, we're going to kind of, like, move more and more to their side of the map, more and more towards their airfield, because it's where they're getting pushed. But the big thing is, I'm booming and zooming, but I'm not really strictly stuck there. There's also different versions. You can boom and zoom, but you can boom and commit. You can commit and run. You can come in from the bottom, come in from the top. There's more ways to do this, rather than this idea of, like, we need to fly strictly top down, only kill people that are unaware of my presence. Because if you do that, you're really underutilizing the plane as opposed to utilizing it correctly. But there's also an argument to be made, like, well, if you never die, that's the best way to play, because, you know, if we're, like, gonna die in the game, like we die in real life, but it's boring. Don't like it. Like, I can sympathize with Idaho's, like, point on the Japanese planes and American planes being strictly hit and run. That really, I disagree with it, because you're not forced to hit and run all the time. Most of the planes that you do fight, you don't have to hit and run. Even the Japanese planes, like the Ki-84, you don't really have to run away from it until after the first, like, 2 or 3 turns. And if you're fighting good players that are in Ki-84s, it's the same as fighting good players in 109 F4s. It's the same as fighting good players in anything that turns better. If they are a good player, they will play to the difference of the plane, where the matchups become a lot more arbitrary. Like the Spitfire LF Mark 9 versus Ki-84 matchup, seems really fair and balanced in random games against random players. As soon as someone knows how to control the LF Mark 9, that matchup becomes very, very arbitrary. Same thing with, I think the earlier kill with the 109 F4 behind me, and I'm at no speed and I'm fighting an A7 M2. Completely arbitrary. Like, he could have been in any plane at that point and he would have won. It would not have mattered. I was in a bad position. I put myself there, and I kind of deliberately chose it because, like, the game's over. I'm gonna try my luck because it's worth it to try your luck, especially in American planes. They're not cripplingly deficient where you can't afford to take risk, especially against, like, random players. But anyways, we're sitting up here around 2,500 meters, just below the cloud layer. Nothing too crazy. We're coming in. We're looking at the situation. We're deciding whether or not to commit. We're going back up. We're trying to make logical decisions. When we do die, we go, hey, why did we die? Is it because he's cheating? Is it because American planes suffer? Is it because maybe I did something stupid? And usually when you die in an American plane, when you die in one, there is usually something that you could have been doing different that would have changed the situation. Now, that doesn't mean that every death that you ever do in an American plane is strictly your fault. It's like, no, if you got some altitude below you and you got the speed and range to do it, if you would have saw the zero, like, I don't know, when it was 1,000 meters away as opposed to when it was 100 meters away, you'd be able to react to it. You would have been able to cancel out the fact that it's coming in at 800 kph near its rip speed, because by the time it caught up to you, it'd only be 500 meters away from you near its rip speed, and you'd be at its rip speed and accelerating away from it, and you'd be able to porpoise around its guns, all kinds of things. Like, you always have options in American planes. Speaking of zeros, we got this guy down here. I think we got his engine the first go, but we come in, we got 700 kph here. Like, there's nothing that's going to catch us unless it is diving straight above us, straight behind us, and that's based on the location on the map. We're near their spawn. It's not going to happen. Got 2 bombers taking off. I'm going to get real greedy here, and I'm going to get what I deserve. I'm going to get what I deserve here. I'm going to hold down the trigger, and the PE-8 shoots my wing off. Very sad. Very, very disappointing. American planes suffer. Truly one of the planes of all time. Anyways, we're back at it. I think we're on the same side of the map, but we're going the opposite direction this time. And this game, I joined it early on, went out, got like 5 kills, and I was like, this is kind of boring. Looked at all the other games, this was like the only lobby that was available. So we're gonna come in, we're looking at the furballs, and in American planes, one of the biggest things you can do is you can go into a furball, but what you should do is try to commit to it, but only like halfway commit to it. You kind of play footsies with it. You can use your speed to kind of stay out of gun range. You don't have to do very, very long boom and zoom passes. The fact that there's more than one player involved in this furball means that if a guy gets behind you, you can kind of drag him into the teammate and keep your speed up and kind of get away. Your speed really is just, it's a means to close distance and generate distance. And the ability to close distance and generate distance at will, for the most part, is an incredibly powerful asset. It's something that you should be taking advantage of. It should be something that you should be aware of. It's also something that most other players are going to be aware of too. Like, a zero that dives in straight above into a furball knows that the only way he's going to catch that Corsair is if he does basically that one thing. His ability to not let you get away is really tied to his altitude. But your ability to get away is also equally tied to your altitude, not specifically having more altitude than the other guy, but you need something below you usually to get up to those speeds that you want to be at. But anyways, we're going to be going up against I think this is a bomber. I think it is probably the same PE-8 that shot us down. We'll probably fly in and get shot down by him too, because that do be the way that it do be sometimes. Looks like an ME-264. Just going to hold down the trigger from the front, and the 50 cals just kind of saw the wing in half. It's a good durable bomber. Now, I don't really like 264s. They're not fun to fight against, but I mean, it is what it is. And I also don't think that bomber players really enjoy watching toxic fighter mains come in and just saw their shit in half. So I mean, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. So we're gonna live with it. He goes in the kill card, and we start going the opposite direction here. We merge, we look at what it is, we think it's a 109, we keep going with it. We're at 252 kph, we're at slow speed, but we do have the flaps. We did get a bunch of position really early on, and because we got that low stall speed, because we can aim the guns, even though he's a 109, even though he turns better, even though, like, better fighter, better position, better this, better that, it didn't help him. Now, if he was goated, if it was like Host Stabby or any of the duelists, those fights are completely different. Those fights, when you get involved into a dogfight against someone who knows what they're doing, it's completely different. Like, in the first turn, you'd be like, oh no, fucking shit's on. Like, okay, we gotta play this to the differences. But the big thing with playing the differences too is random EC games are not the same as duels. And the reason I say that is because there are some planes that that fare a little bit better in EC, just due to having altitude, having merges not happen in a completely controlled environment. Like the F6F is a perfect example. Like the F6F, if you are in a normal duel that starts on the deck at high speed, you've got about 2 good turns in you before things have equalized and then the other guy's able to kind of like come around behind you. In EC, if you're merging at 2,000 meters, the F6F is really, really good at converting altitude into turn rate and into turning ability. So as long as that plane gets even like moderately fast, you can kind of keep resetting, pulling in, and you can make a more interesting, fight. So it's not completely black and white. Like, I'm not to the extent of like, you should never turn with this plane. Now we get a Key 43, we come in with a bunch of speed, stall them out, get them slow, and shoot him. And this is, we almost get got. He does get a bullet off, and he does hit the wing, but our plane is fairly durable. His plane's fairly weak, but the Japanese planes are really, really small. The Key 43, very, very annoying target to shoot at. That's one of the problems I think with American planes that people have, is like, you can be winning a turn fight, you can be doing fine, but you are basically 30 to 40% larger than everything else. So the second guy that's coming in, he might have terrible aim, might be abysmal, but he will probably still get something off on you. So it's something you have to be aware of. But we go out, we're going to come back, and we're almost done with the game. Thankfully, it's almost over. We can almost end the prop arc and go back to top tier jets and game the YouTube algorithm so we can hear the beep boop 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 boop, mission destroyed. But anyways, that's going to be pretty much most of WarThunder. Let me know what you guys think of this kind of content. I know this is a little bit longer than I intended, but I'm trying to put out stuff that's good. I'm trying to put out stuff that people enjoy, stuff that the kind of videos that I would have liked to have seen when I started playing WarThunder. That's kind of my goal here. But we're coming back towards the spawn again, and this is kind of crummy. Some people don't like this, but for me, if you're off the runway in your climb, you got 500 meters of altitude or whatever, I think that's fair game. And at this point, I'm just running up the scoreboard, to be honest. Like, I just want to be able to, like, look at all the kills, look at all these guys. We got 3 guys coming out, maybe 4.
Follow me.
And we're gonna pick a target. And usually, what happens is I'm gonna go for the guy that I figure is the biggest threat. The Japanese plane here, the Key 43, is probably the most annoying thing to deal with, because once he's aware of me, he can kind of rotate around. His ability to follow me in a climb, even if he's not able to follow me, he's still going to be able to point the nose, is one of the most, like, it's a very, very annoying thing. So we get rid of him first. Do 335 is not much of a threat, and we're going to pick up another Japanese plane. And he's just, because we came in with so much energy, he's just kind of like stuck below us. We come in, we're at 500 in that turn, and that's about 50 kph faster than his top speed. Even if we missed that shot, we could have went back up, and we probably have a chance for another pass. But as we make our passes, we're going to lose more speed, go up a little bit less. If he times his climb correctly, a lot of times you can follow him up. There is some kind of counterplay that you can use against boom and zoom players in your turn fighter. It usually involves, though, them missing their shots. fighting a Boom and Zoom player that knows how to aim 50 cals in something that's Japanese, it ends up being kind of pointless, to be honest. It's one of the more like miserable dichotomies of the game. It's kind of like as miserable as like the dichotomy of early Jets versus late war props. But that'll be a video for another time. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys found it informative. If you didn't, I don't know, still like it, subscribe to it. Tell me that I'm good. Be a sycophant in the comments. You know, I gotta assemble the monopod bird army and whatnot. But anyways, that's my Beer Thunder for the day. Have a good one.